Welcome back. I'm with Jan Bryden, and we're continuing our talk on Let's Get Growing, and we're in Jan's fruit orchard that, if you remember from last month, it didn't really have that much growth on it, and we weren't, there were some blooms and things kind of looked a little sparse, and there's quite a difference here, Jan.
Yeah, John, since last month we've fertilized the trees and done quite a bit of watering. We also sprayed the weeds around the base. And you can see there's a lot of new growth, and on this tree we're getting quite a few little peaches.
Now, one of the problems, and I guess one of the big things with homeowners, is that they are very reluctant to thin a tree. So here's a tree that's not real big and yet has a pretty heavy crop on it, and as these peaches get bigger, they're going to cause these limbs to droop and possibly break. So what we want to do is come in and thin the fruit off the tree. So what we're going to do is just twist some of the fruit off. And what I like to do is keep a fruit somewhere about every 4 to 6 inches. So we're going to come in and thin pretty heavy. So we're just going to drop them. So we have one here, kind of got those cleared out. We're down to a group here that will take those off and leave one there. We want to take the weight off of the branches so that they don't have so much weight on them. So we have them kind of spaced out. We could probably even take that one off. So we want to leave the weight a little bit on the stronger branches and not put a lot of them out on the end, because that'll cause it to weight down. So we're going to go through here and kind of thin those off, make sure that they are going to fruit. Here's another group that has quite a few on it. We'll go ahead and take 2 of these off. We'll leave these 2 and just kind of see how they progress, because we can thin them even one more time if they're look like they're putting too much weight on. So you can see quite a bit of fruit on the ground, but actually what's going to happen is this fruit is going to be much larger in size. And if we had left that fruit on the tree, all of them would have been kind of medium size. So hopefully we're going to have some large size fruits here, and what you've taken off is going to be made up in larger fruit, and yet you've helped regulate the load on the tree. So also with some of the growth that we've had on the tree, we can come in and thin some of the growth out. So if we want to open the tree up a little bit and take some of the growth off so that we're getting more sunlight in to kind of help get sunlight in to ripen some of the fruit, we can take some of those shoots off at the time. And if they're getting a little too lengthy, like out on some of the ends, we can come in and clip just clip the tip out, and that'll stop the growth on it and force more growth down here, so you can kind of thicken it up. Again, the foil down at the bottom was put on for a couple reasons. One is, and the main reason was, Jan was spraying weeds around the base here, and so that helps to keep the spray off the trunk of the tree. Also, if you have any rabbits or critters feeding on the trunks, that helps protect that, and it also gives a little bit of sun protection. So, and then Jan, last thing, we were going to put some mulch around it to help keep the weeds down and also keep moisture in these circles. So we've got some flakes of hay here that will break up, and again, this mulch we'd like to have a couple inches deep at least, and not really stacked up against the tree, but spread out so that we're blocking sunlight out to the weed growth, and we can get the moisture in there when you irrigate. And that way we'll have a nice moist soil that'll stay. And kind of for water conservation purposes, this is mulches are good to use, so we'll kind of keep that away from the trunk of the tree, but keep it out here. Just break it up, and that way it's hopefully these trees will respond to all that extra moisture and care. So
This looks good, John. And before we leave here, I want to show you all the new growth that's on that little tree that we cut back last time, and then I want to show you the roses.
okay.
John, last time this tree was about this tall and didn't have any growth, and I think we all gasped when you cut it in half, but I think the results have paid off.
Yeah, it looks like we got good new growth coming out on it, and hopefully that'll continue. Might even get a few more breaks on it. So it's looking good. Keep it watered and fertilized, and I think it'll come back good.
Great.
Let's take a look at the roses.
John, you remember last month we fertilized the roses, and we've had a lot of new growth and
A lot of good growth.
and some beautiful blooms. Now I'm noticing that we do have some insects, and there's possibly some growth that we don't want. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you've got a few shoots that are starting to come out from probably below the graft union. You can kind of see how there's a difference in leaf shape and foliage, and these are kind of putting a lot of real rampant growth on, so these are probably rootstock material, so those need to be cut off at the point of origin. I want to clip all those off because they're taking a lot of the energy away from the main part of the plant, so we want to keep those cut down and not let them get too much growth on them.
Okay.
We also have a rose here that's kind of what we call a spent rose, where it's kind of beyond its maturity, and so it needs to be clipped off. Rosarians kind of like to do it about with the first 5 leaflet leaf, so we'll cut that off. And one of the things that you can kind of check for when you're doing it is to see whether you have thrips in here. And thrips are a little teeny tiny insect. You can kind of see just these little tiny slivers moving around on the rose petal. There's one right in the center there.
And what do I need to do to control those?
Those are very, very hard to control. Usually what we do is take the spent roses off and not throw them back down on the ground like a lot of people do. So as soon as the rose is becoming a little bit over mature, get it clipped off and get it put in the trash and disposed of, because you can reinfest some of the roses by throwing these back down on the ground. There are insecticides you can use when the rose is in more of a tight bud, because that's when the thrip will get into them. And insecticide sprays can be used there. Again, in the tight form, once it's opened up like this, then the thrip has probably already done its damage.
So with the insecticide sprays, would that be like Malthion or?
Right, Malthion, diazinon, one of those that you can use as a cover spray.
And what about rotenone?
Rotenone will help a little bit, but it has a short residual, and you really have to do a thorough job of covering the entire bud, whereas the spray material, you can do it a little bit easier.
Okay.
Jan, thank you very much for helping to host this segment of Let's Get Growing.
You're welcome.
Rose for you.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next month.